Are you experiencing back pain that you can't get rid of? Getting migraines, vertigo, having trouble sleeping, and/or brain fog? Do you feel like your medical doctor doesn't understand your condition? Blair Chiropractic might be the solution you've been looking for. If you've ever been skeptical about this, the two doctors you're about to listen to were even more skeptical than you were when they looked into chiropractic work. But fear not. Get expert guidance from the blonde and the bald, Doctors Beth Bagley and Frederick Schurger. These two doctors have extensive experience beyond the healthcare realm and bringing unique vision and healing to their patients. What do you have when you get a biological analyst and an engineer together? Find out right here on another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Welcome your hosts, Doctors Bagley and Schurger.
Dr. Bagley, how are you doing this fine Friday afternoon for us recording?
Well, I'm well, but psychologically hurt.
Folks, welcome to The Blonde and the Bald. I'm Dr. Frederick Schurger. This is Dr. Beth Bagley. Dr. Beth Bagley would like to start off this episode here with things she hates. Go ahead.
You know what I hate? I hate shoe shopping for homecoming with my twins when neither of them know what they want, and then they hate everything that I say, and I'm always wrong. I didn't even have time to put makeup on. I feel like my soul has been sucked out of my body. And but we did come away successful-ish.
Wonderful.
We have 2 pairs of shoes, and
Nice.
Nobody's crying. I'm inside crying, but nobody's crying. Yeah. So I got to do that today. But you know what? I'm blessed that I got to do that. So I like to think of positive things. But you know what else I hate? I hate daylight saving time, and that's coming up in a month. And but I'm saying it now because I bet this will be posted close to that.
Just about that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no, and I concur with you on that. Daylight savings time. There is so many things. I was joking with a patient about this week. If I just run over to Indiana to visit over at my dad's place, the 1 hour time difference.
Yes, I never thought about that.
1 hour. And, and I'm just a little bit groggy afterwards. I try not to change too much my sleeping habits. In fact, right now, I'm trying to wake up earlier so that when I get over there, my early is normal, so that I can go, when I go out hunting, it's still dark and it's like 6:30 or something. So that means I'm getting up at 5:30 now. But no, daylight savings time, there's so much science that isn't really disputed anymore.
Not even a little bit.
I wouldn't call it settled, but it's certainly not disputed about some of the bad effects that people have. The increase in heart attacks.
Yes, the heart attacks.
The increase
car accidents.
Car accidents. That was where I was going next. Just poor work performance for not 1 but 2 weeks every year.
Yeah.
And yet
so
we cannot get that to get passed to get rid of it.
And you think if there's one thing both Republicans and Democrats could get behind in Congress and that everyone would be excited about, it would be that.
Yeah.
Yet that is just sat there.
Yep.
And they've done nothing with it.
2 or 3 years that they've been talking about doing this and getting it fixed, and nothing. And that makes me more angry than anything else, aside from the fact that I grew up in Indiana, never had to deal with it for 20 years. And then it comes in to now it made sense in Pennsylvania. I personally think the Eastern time zone is way too wide, and they might need to split it into 2 pieces, because when I was working out in Pennsylvania and the sun was coming up at 4 a.m., I got it. That makes sense. That is way too early to be waking up. But it has more problems, especially here in the Midwest. It doesn't serve
again, us. I don't ever hear one person say, "Oh, I'm so glad I get to change the clocks." Like nobody says that. So, yeah. I mean, I guess we have to rise up. We have to rise up and say, no, we will not change the clocks anymore.
Exactly.
And I'm in the mindset that we want to keep the summertime, the daylight savings time, just all year round. Like I want this time to be the same.
I could go either way.
I mean, no matter what, not changing would be great, but I'm cool with this.
I think if we did that, that would keep the sun from getting up too early, for certainly during the summer. But any case, whichever the case may be, it is definitely a mess. Anything else you hate?
There's another thing I hate is when I hear about people I want to say patients. I guess it's patients taking advantage of the doctor. Now, obviously, doctors can take advantage of patients, so I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I had a story that I was reading about on one of the socials, and it's not my story, but I'm going to read it, and I want to hear what you would do in this case as a male chiropractor, and then I would say what I would do.
Sure.
And this is I'm going to say but it's not me. So this is a quote. I just received a voicemail from a patient that I dismissed from care 6 years ago. I could no longer treat him because he would not follow through with any recommendations for further testing, blood work, scans, and he just kept wanting to come in every week. He was a very difficult person to deal with, and the office dreaded his visits. His voicemail today was to tell me that his father recently passed and he was taking care of his 85-year-old mother and doesn't trust any other doctors to see her and wants to bring her in to see me because she tweaked her hip. He would obviously be the one to bring her, which means I will have to see him and possibly deal with him trying to reestablish being a patient in my office. I really don't want to get into another uncomfortable situation, but he did sound desperate. And of course, the guilt of hearing him in the call with, "This is my mother, doctor," it's making me question what I do or what to do. So this is a female chiropractor talking about that, but put that in the male perspective is you've already dismissed the patient and now they want to bring a family member in. What would you do?
And there's two sides to this. If this was a case of mine that was a male patient, and I'll flip it the other way here in a second too. But if it was a male patient who I'm like, no, this is not working, and it's making the office uncomfortable, just in general, man, this is hard because I know I've had that comment made to me so many times. Doc, I trust your judgment more than I trust the medical doctors, and I find that to be really sad that we do not have. I don't know what that means about the medical profession today. That begs a couple different questions. One being whether or not they are able to do their jobs as effectively as they would like to the entire, or is it the hospitalization, the trying to, you've got 10 minutes with a patient because you got to get 6 patients in, and this is your quota for the day, cookie cutter type situation that so many doctors are getting stuck in with these, I don't even know what to call it, industrialized hospital systems. But that's one of those things where the problem, you want to help that person, but you also realize that you are not the only person who can help them. And quite honestly, the other side of it is you felt uncomfortable with that individual from the get-go, and it was just a bad situation for your office. Flip that with a female patient. A lot of that, in my case, a lot of that's the same uncomfortableness, the same, this didn't work out the last time. This is where, as a chiropractor, for you and I, we both have people that don't do exactly what we do, that we have met, that we're like, oh, you're doing that work the way that it's supposed to be done. You're a good doctor. And sometimes we send, some of our patients will come in and they say, Doc, I need help with this, or this. And we realize it's not a good fit for us. And we find that other doctor that makes a good fit for that patient. So this would be one of those cases. It's like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with you for reasons that we've already established. I would recommend this individual over here. And for the patients listening, we do love you. But some of you can get on our nerves a little bit. I'm not going to pretend that you don't exist. And quite honestly, some of you are coming in on a regular basis, and I'm going to still say it. We love you, but you also have to realize that if you're taking up our time, and we're trying to give you the time that you deserve, while also taking care of the other patients, and you're taking away from the other patients, that makes everybody unhappy. So that's a hard one, because
isn't it?
It really
you
is.
want to help it, because it's not the mother's fault that the son is an awful human being.
Right. But it's also, it also begs the question, how many other people has the son rubbed the wrong way that they trust nobody?
100% correct.
So again, this is one of those, from a risk management perspective, run away. You cannot bring them in, because that gives other problems. It really does. But I get it. I've had those cases where everyone's like, you're the man, and you're the, I've gone to everybody else, and I'm like, great. Now we're going to do it my way, the way that I suggested we do it in the first place. And if you don't follow around, you're out in a week. So you have to set those standards, because I had a coach several years ago that reminded me of something, and I really want to go find the recordings. I have them on an old computer. But one of the things he said, and this is just great advice, how did he put it? You get what you tolerate.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. And learning how to say no to certain situations is really important. So if you tolerate certain activities, you're going to get that. And that might not elevate you to the level that you want to be. If you tolerate in your diet having, just one piece of cheesecake every night at dinner, it's a small piece.
One piece every night.
Yeah, no. What was the? I saw a clip recently. It was really cute, about a father taking his son for a walk, and the son at 4 years old says, "Daddy, we have gone 5 minutes, and I must now be carried." And the father is then saying, "Look, you're the one who said, you don't need the stroller." "Yes, but Daddy, we must go back. I'm tired. Pick me up." It's like, no. And it eventually comes down to, Daddy's been eating, 2 popsicles after dinner every night, but Mommy doesn't know about the second popsicle, or something to that effect. And just, all right, we'll go back, and, we'll sit on the couch. Just don't tell Mommy. And the first thing the kid does is turn around. "Mommy, Daddy said we can go sit on the couch for the rest of the afternoon and skip our walk." Again, we get what we tolerate.
So on that respect, so what I would do, agreed, is I would not accept that patient's mother or that patient as reestablishing into the practice. I would refer, and I wouldn't feel bad about it.
No.
And that's what I hope this other chiropractor comes across, and doesn't feel bad about it, or any practitioner. When you set a boundary and won't tolerate something, you're not being mean, you're being nice to yourself, and nice to your staff. Because the people we work with, we have to protect them. I actually have one more story if we have time.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
So something that we couldn't tolerate in our office. And there was this, I'm going to call him a creep, who came in. He was not my patient. He was one of my associates. All of my associates so far have been female. Not that I wouldn't hire a male chiropractor. I would love to, but so far it's just been female chiropractors. And she kind of got creeped out by him, but she never really told me. I never got a good feeling about him in general, but he wasn't my patient. I saw him a couple times. And then I didn't know about all of the things that led up to the final blow. But now that look back at it, I'm like, wow, we should have dismissed him way before that. But I didn't know about it.
Right.
So one time he grabbed her leg, and said, "Oh, is that your?" He was face down on the table, and then he reached out and grabbed her leg. He's like, "Oh, is that your leg? That's weird. Like, you don't touch people." She didn't tell me that. Again, I would immediately have kicked him out of the practice at that moment if I would have known about that. When he would talk to you, he got real close, like real close.
Close talkers are always weird.
Yeah, but like to the point where his body was like touching the side of you. And he did that to me one time. I dismissed it because I didn't know all the other things.
Right.
But I thought, okay, he's just doesn't understand those kind of boundaries. But he never like touched me.
Yeah.
And he would sometimes bring her food. And again, sometimes our patients bring us food.
Yeah.
Right. But it was like, hey, I made this fancy whatever, and I brought you a leftover thing. And she said it was good. She did eat it. But that was again before all the other things happened. And then he was getting his second set of x-rays taken after and this was when we had x-rays and not the fancy machine we had, the CBCT. But he said a comment like, sort of like flirting with the idea of them going out together. Now he was married and he was much older.
Right.
And she came to me immediately at that point. But he said it in a very like not okay way. And at that point, I boiled with anger. He had already been out of there, but I would have went up to him at that point. I'm glad he had already left.
Yeah.
And so then I called my coach, Dr. Noel Lloyd, and I said, what should I do? And he goes, I was like, next time he comes in, should I talk to him? Should I just tell him this is your last visit? And he goes, no. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, there's no next time he comes in. He's call him on the phone.
Yeah,
and it was
call
just
him
me.
on the phone and you're like, done.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So I called him on the phone and I said, hey, sir, I want to say his name, but I won't. Hey, sir, you've been acting inappropriate with my staff. That's unacceptable. You are no longer a patient in the clinic. Effective immediately, we'll be sending you a letter with 3 places to refer you, which were all male doctors that I sent it to. And it's like, if you need, in that letter, it's like, if you need your information, which he never. And you know what his comment was back? Okay.
What? Yeah. Because he knows, because he's done it before.
Exactly. And I was like, you swarmy bee. I mean, like, oh, anyway. So I hate that happened to a young female chiropractor. It really doesn't happen to me much because I am gigantic. You guys haven't seen me stand up, but I am 6'1 3/4. So I'm very tall. So typically I don't get that kind of,
which is why that I'm still trying to figure out why your girls just bought shoes with bigger heels, because they're as tall as you are.
No, they're not as tall as me. They'll be tall. No, they're not. They'll be taller. Anymore. They're not going to be taller than me. They're plenty tall. Tall. Their growth plates are pretty much done. So I took a picture anyway, not for that reason, but I could see it on that picture anyway. So, but yeah, they've got really tall shoes.
Yeah.
But so if you're if you know that you're kind of a gross dude and you're listening to this, go see a male chiropractor.
The other way.
Absolutely.
I've had a couple.
If you know that you have a problem with that, you need to see a chiropractor couldn't possibly be attracted to, either same sex, different sex, whatever your game is.
It is one of the reasons why I am surprised that there are any men going into OBGYN. I know there are.
I find it interesting that they do that too, just because I feel like that's there's so much that as a female that you experience, just like,
and you almost need to be a woman to be able to relate properly.
The empathy, yes. And we could say the same thing about, what is I can't think of, urologists, right?
Well, urologist goes back and forth.
I know, but typically it's you've got men patients.
It's the proctologist that knows and enjoys doing the prostate exams that I'm just like, nope.
I don't know if they enjoy it. Maybe they do. There's a couple. I'm glad they exist.
Dr. Bearder is too good at it. We won't talk about why that's the case.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe I'll find that picture and I'll have no, we won't put that picture in. It's
oh my gosh. Okay. Now I have another story. So in Kirksville, Missouri, there is a college and it's called Truman University. It's part of the Missouri University system. And there's also a osteopathic college school. It's like medical school, but osteopaths get a DO instead of an MD.
Right.
And they need subjects to practice stuff on.
Right.
And there's young college students who don't have any money. So my brother-in-law's fraternity would go and be the dummies for the proctology exams, where they'd stick the fingers up and then they'd also cup the testicles. And what do they call it? Like bucks for butts. There we go. And so they would sign up for different times and they would all take their turns to make money for the fraternity. Well, Scott got stuck one time and nobody showed up after him. So he got stuck there and he was there for like 3 hours.
Oh my.
All of them. And poor Scott. Sorry, Scott. His poor butt. But he made a lot of bucks for his butt.
Hey, you know, sometimes you take one for the team. Any case.
It's a funny story he tells. I'm sure he tells it better because there's probably more things. But anyway, that's one of the things actually that we were going to bring up today is censorship in chiropractic. And I think osteopathy had some censorship in the beginnings of that too.
They did.
They kind of got consumed by
and this comes down to, you know, again, what is, you know, a lot of people think that osteopaths that do a level of manipulation do exactly what chiropractors do. And there are similarities. There are certainly chiropractors that don't do much more than a gross manipulation when they go to adjust. And then there's folks like you and I that are so precise that we're looking down a very specific angle, a very specific vector on one segment, not even just one segment, but oftentimes one joint of a segment is our goal for our adjustment. And what happened is the osteopaths, chiropractors have been offered something similar as well. They've looked at this, but the osteopaths were non-medical or they did not prescribe. And at a certain point in time, they decided they wanted that they were like, all right, we're going to do prescribing rights. And a lot of their heritage and a lot of their history died out as a result of that. Not all of it. And some of them are coming back to it because they realize the system is broken, as many of us have realized, especially over the past couple of years, that just, you know, keeping on taking drugs doesn't necessarily get you healthier. So sometimes there's a couple things. We can go back to the beginning and sort of the elimination of, I'm back and forth on homeopathy, but at the time, homeopathy.
Okay. Quick question about homeopathy. Yes. Naturopaths practice homeopathy.
Right.
Are homeopaths the same thing as a naturopath?
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm glad I don't know.
No, you're not the only one, because I've heard so many things and I don't know how the ins and outs go. I know that what ended up happening though around the late 1920s, there was a boom as we started getting better medicines, as they started figuring out, oh, wait a second, I can from a chemical create a medicine. And this was out of the oil boom because they figured out that there were carbon molecules that they could create that then created certain changes within the body. This is where people like the Rockefellers came into the picture, and they actually started saying, oh, if you sell our medications and you promote that, which is what allopathy, what traditionally, what is now called medical doctors, they were allopaths. Creating a, help with the help of pharmacists, they figured out what drugs worked well for what situations because they were treating the symptoms. That's what allopathic medicine has always been about. It was, here's a symptom, we use this to treat said symptom. Whereas chiropractic, and to a lesser degree, let's back up. Osteopathy looked at and they said, what we are treating is improper flows in the body, specifically blood flow. And then chiropractic said, well, no, what we're focusing on is correcting vertebral subluxations that are impinging upon neural tissue, preventing the nervous system from working the way it's supposed to. And things seem to have fit a model, and that seems to, work in certain ways. In the end, homeopathy was basically saying, well, if we dilute something down to the individual, most minute spot where it's mostly water, but there's just a little bit of whatever the toxin was, that helps you heal. Again, I've done some homeopathy that worked really well. And then I've seen some other stuff that I'm just like, I don't know. So if it works, I'm not opposed to it. If there's questions, that just means more research and more study. Well, in comes Rockefeller, and Rockefeller basically says, no, I only want medical schools because I can make money selling our product.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, Rockefeller is funding all these medical schools.
Okay, so they funded the textbooks.
Yes.
They gave them free textbooks. So they wrote the textbooks and gave them to them for free.
Yep.
They donated tons of money to the medical schools. So pretty much they owned the medical schools and the information that was transferred to the medical doctors.
Because whatever information, whoever owns the information flow, owns the mind of whoever you're flowing it to.
It's an information war. So, and all evil empires know this, like that you got to control the information.
Yeah.
So then again, what happened then is the medical schools were told that they have to teach that all this basic knowledge that had been hundreds of years in the making of this bark does this, and then this plant does this, and it's free. You just have to find it in your garden.
Yeah.
All of that was BS, even though it's been hundreds of years. Now, I'm not saying some medical technology hasn't been phenomenal and amazing. And some of these medications, things like insulin and antibiotics are saving millions, billions of lives. But there's a lot that wasn't great.
Oh, yeah.
And the censorship that the chiropractic community saw at that time, because chiropractic was a baby. Well, everybody, but we're going to focus on us because we know about us.
We know more about us than the homeopaths. The homeopaths almost disappeared.
We don't even know if homeopaths and naturopaths are the same.
Exactly. But yeah, go ahead.
So we've got the American Medical Association, which should be just a group of doctors that are trying to improve the medical knowledge and all that stuff. Well, that got bought too.
Yep.
So now we have all of these things that are working to eliminate other health practitioners. And chiropractic took a big hit on that. So what they started they actually, there's proof, and we'll talk about how we found the proof. Not we, but some amazing lawyers and doctors found the proof. There was proof that they were systematically trying to eliminate chiropractic from the world. And
that started in the mid 60s, I think is when it was, because the founder, the developer of chiropractic, B.J. Palmer, was a huge force, not just in chiropractic and developing the technique and research, but politically. Reagan, he knew Reagan. He fired Reagan because BJ owned two radio stations in Iowa, one that is now a TV station. But Reagan worked for the radio station back in the day. There's some funny stories involving Reagan at that radio station regarding a baseball game. The baseball game is fantastic as told by Reagan. Go look it up. But he was politically connected throughout the country. People knew him, because of his chiropractic endeavors, because of his research endeavors, because of his philanthropy that he was doing throughout the world, or throughout the U.S. at the very least. So he was connected. When BJ dies in the early 60s, I think it was 63, 62, one of those two, they see an opportunity. Because quite honestly, chiropractic was a little bit of in disarray, especially the college after his death. Lots of problems, lots of political infighting, as with all young professions or young anythings organizations. So they saw an opportunity and started sending out little flyers and pamphlets, basically suggesting that chiropractors, they couldn't join organizations. Rotary, you couldn't, if you were a chiropractor, the medical doctor.
Can we pause for a second? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
It was too. It was.
Oh, here's your phone. Yay. All right.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
All right.
We had somebody come to my door. So, okay. But what I want to talk about real quick, because since I interrupt you, I might as well fully interrupt you, is until 1983, the AMA, 1983. So that's not that long ago. I mean, I'm old, but the AMA,
we were kids.
The AMA held that it was unethical for medical doctors to associate with an unscientific practitioner and labeled chiropractic an unscientific cult, a cult.
Right.
Before 1980, Principle 3 of the AMA Principles of Medical Ethics stated a physician should practice a method of healing founded in a scientific basis and should not voluntarily professionally associate with anyone who violates this principle. So like they were told that if they did that, like they're bad doctors. Like if you by chance, like God forbid, a medical doctor actually went to a chiropractor.
Oh,
I mean, even to this day, we still feel some of the brunt of that with the older generation. It's less than it used to be, but we still feel it.
Yeah.
And then we can keep going there.
Yeah, I was going to say and that this was all started in the 1960s. And they would send out pamphlets. Now, folks, you should ask if you've got a primary doctor, who happens to be a medical doctor, you should ask them if they belong to the American Medical Association. I will be surprised if more than a handful will answer yes to that question.
Really?
It's like 1 out of 5, if not less.
Okay.
It is not as our organizations are not well. We don't have it's not well membershiped is the best way to describe it. But the AMA is especially one of those organizations that has very small membership relative to the population of medical doctors that exist. So it makes it out that, they are the top of the top, and they're the cream of the crop, and they are clearly the voice of the medical profession. And yet they are only a small minority, and often many of them disagree, but at the risk to themselves and their medical licenses, because they set the standards. And if you let somebody set a standard for you, if you let somebody tell you what you're going to tolerate, you're going to have to tolerate it. So any case, I believe it was in the early 70s, there was, so this stuff was going on in the 60s and the 70s, and it ran through the 80s, but the damage was done. A lot of, literally the genie was out of the bottle. I prefer using Pandora's box in this case, if people remember that myth. But you couldn't put the thing back in because it was already making basically a bad stain on chiropractic. Now, are there other things that chiropractors have done to make a bad stain on the profession? Absolutely. I'm not going to say that there isn't.
Still to this day, sorry, I keep muting it because there's now workers on my house. Yeah. Still to this day, there's lots of chiropractors making huge mistakes on social media and making the profession look bad. But I'll be honest, as any profession has that. I think chiropractors are a special group of idiots sometimes.
When we do it, it's a microscope immediately.
It is.
When other people do it, they're like, oh yeah, that happens. But again, if one person died of while under chiropractic care, it would be national news. Don't ask how many people die every day. Not necessarily because that they weren't going to survive a given thing, but because of properly prescribed medicines that were improper for the case.
Yeah.
So,
and that if someone wants to research that iatrogenic
deaths associated with medicine. But in any case, so this is all starting, and what ended up happening, and I'm looking at a couple of things here that I haven't reviewed in a while, but one of the things was it was a nationwide attack on chiropractic and the profession as a whole. And yeah, in 1966, the AMA adopted a resolution calling chiropractic an unscientific cult, and they were still doing that, like you said, until the 1980s. But
the damage was done at that point.
Yeah. They kept chiropractors out of hospitals, so there was never a chance for a chiropractor to even stay at a hospital, even though many had been. And out of Chicago, there was I met this man, George McAndrews, was the head of the group. He was the lawyer that led the Wilkes suit, which was four chiropractors that basically said, "Hey, we found evidence that there is a problem here." And Dr. McAndrews, he should be. I think he got an honorary DC somewhere along the line. But George McAndrews was passionate about chiropractic. I don't know if you're aware of this. George McAndrews comes from a family of chiropractors. He's the black sheep.
Well, it makes sense.
He's the black sheep because he was
became
the one who
a
went to
lawyer.
law. Yeah.
He made such a huge impact on our profession.
Right. Because he was already, his dad couldn't walk, and a chiropractor had tried something. And okay, here's where it gets weird. Chiropractor jumped on him and he was able to get up and do better. That's the way that he as a child remembers it. But in any case, I think he's got a family of, I think there's 6 or 7 of them. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a big family. All of the others went into chiropractic. And basically what they eventually figured out was not only was the AMA distributing these pamphlets, but then they were immediately disposing of them. There was a group of individuals. We don't know who these individuals were. There's some suspicions that it was a group of either Latter-day Saints or, maybe some Scientologists, one of the two. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a religious group, and they never did know who these people were, but they ended up going to work for the AMA in the AMA's building where they were printing these things, and they were told to basically shred and get rid of all this evidence of all these pamphlets that they had been putting out for years and years and years. And those pamphlets, instead of being destroyed, were put into a trash can and taken off premise and then delivered to Doctors Wilk and then later Mr. McAndrews to basically use as evidence that the American Medical Association was actually trying to prevent and basically eliminate
chiropractic.
Yeah, and that was their goal.
So let's fast forward. 76, Chester Wilk and 4 other chiropractors sued the AMA, several nationwide health care associations, and several physicians for violations of Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. They lost the first trial. It happened in 1981.
Yep.
And so look at that already. 1976, they start it, and it goes all the way until 1981. That's how much back and forth went.
And this is always the case with any sort of, when you have to get the lawyers involved and the judge involved, it's going to take a long time. These things. I
mean, this took exceptionally long, and these aren't rich people. This is a very rich organization that they're suing, or I guess it is suing. Yeah, they're suing. And it's,
I can't remember how they got. The AMA got their money from something else, and I can't remember. I want to say there was a product that they promoted, and they got a kickback on that product on the radio that really gave them their fund and their war chest to do these kinds of attacks on other professions. And then
they got a new an appeal, and they ended up winning in 83. Right. And that's when things changed.
Yeah.
So if you've been telling someone for 30 years, they're the bad guy, they're a cult, they're awful. And then these doctors are training the next generation of doctors and the next generation of medical doctors. I think we still see the repercussions of what was happening. But I do think it's changing. We get referrals from medical doctors
Absolutely.
now. We get,
well,
we have relationships with medical doctors now because we don't do what they do and they don't do what we do.
And here's one of my favorite bits. There was a medical doctor who testified on behalf of the chiropractors. Per Freitag, a medical physician who associated with chiropractors, observed that patients in one hospital who received chiropractic treatment were released sooner than patients in another hospital where he was on staff that did not allow chiropractors. And that was a risk to his professional integrity. Per Freitag was teaching literally down the road here at the medical school here in Springfield, Illinois. I got to meet the man. Fantastic. I got to shake his hand. It's sort of nice to meet the real heroes. This is what, and when you meet somebody like that, you're like, what kind of medical doctor are you? The man died at his desk on a Friday afternoon. They didn't find the body till Monday because he was doing what he loved right up to the end. That's the kind of medical doctor he was. So much so that he said, hey, these chiropractors are doing something right. I don't know what it is, but they're doing something right. So it's neat to realize and meet these people and realize that they were helping us and helping make sure other people could get the care that they needed, and just no roadblocks for censorship. So even today, I mean, I'm looking at let's see, that was the U.S. judge finds medical group conspired against chiropractors. That was August 28th. 1987, and we're still dealing with it today. I saw there was another study or story that I saw looking at in 2015 how that it's still affecting us to contain and eliminate chiropractic. That was their goal.
That was the terminology. That's what they found on paper. That was like literally like a memo or whatever. Yeah,
and it's just something that we still need to be aware of because censorship of information has never stopped. That is sort of, we think we live in a world where we have free information. No, we have a lot of information that seems free, but who decided what you're going to hear? And this scares me. This is what I love about podcasts. And this is why I wanted to do this podcast. This one specifically, but the podcast in general, is to be able to share stories, share what our knowledge and our experiences have been, because we see things that are amazing that don't necessarily fit the normal paradigm or certainly the normal narrative of what is going on. I think as we were coming up with this right now, there's a lot of natural health stuff that is being censored. I remember it would have been 2019. I was driving, I think I was driving over to see my dad and mom and get her adjusted. It might have been 2020, but either way, I heard Rob Wolf, who is, he's a big health advocate. He's got he owns the product LMNT for like, what is it called? It's basically an electrolyte product. He was saying that just as in 2019, or maybe even as early as 2018, natural health products and natural health websites were being suppressed by the Google algorithm so that they were not showing up as high, just to say, hey, how do I naturally treat a headache? And that would end up, Google was putting those results on the second or third page. Folks, you and I all know that if it's not on the first page, oftentimes, you're thinking, oh, the best stuff's on the first page because that's how Google curates stuff to give me the best stuff right off the bat. It's not. It is not. And that's really scary and annoying that you're not getting the best information possible.
Yeah. So then we go with like, well, who's the master controller of Google? And it's like, I would say the highest bidder. Sorry.
Maybe a little bit of China in that group.
Sammy, my dog, is upset by Google.
Well, Sammy can come over and bark at Google with us.
Sounds good. But like, I mean, I think there's some of the government in there.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of government, like I've never, and I hope to never see, but I'm sure I will see the amount of censorship that happened by our government and by the power that the pharmaceutical industry had and others during the COVID epidemic.
Well, and we already know that the government was saying, hey, we need to get these individuals censored. In fact, so much so that Alex Berenson, a former New York Times reporter, was just saying, hey, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And he gets banned from Twitter as a result of that. Now, he settled that case and is back out, but we might find out all that data and what ended up being the reason he got censored. But we know that there was a back door to at least Google or at least Twitter, and there is now evidence that they're trying to go after other people and just basically eliminate them from all platforms. Whether he's innocent or not, Russell Brand is getting attacked by anonymous sources, which tells us nothing. And I'm not going to say the man was a saint because, quite honestly,
he said he wasn't a saint. He's the first one to tell you he was a drug addict and he was promiscuous,
right.
and he's not anymore. He's changed, but go ahead.
Just yesterday, Rumble gets a letter from the government, not from any sort of organization, but the government itself saying, you got to take Russell Brand off your platform because he's a problem. And because of these allegations. And all of a sudden, they're like, no, we don't need to listen to you because you are not driving, this thing. So basically they're basically trying to eliminate him from the conversation, because it's not just about, you don't hear about the information, and yet you see little bits and pieces and people can sort of talk about it. No, they eliminate you completely from the conversation. And this becomes a problem because, people like Dr. Mercola have been around 20, 25 years now, basically talking about different ways to be healthy. He's an osteopath too. He's an old school osteopath looking for ways to make people healthy without the need for drugs and surgery. And you have him, his website has been, for the longest time, he only had links up for maybe 48 hours. And then he had to get that all sort of, because otherwise, it wouldn't last for long, and then he'd have to pull it down so that he didn't get attacked by various organizations. He was talking reasonable stuff about vitamin D. Now, folks, I've talked about taking high dose vitamin D. That might be too much. But yet, and I say, hey, don't start out like that, and work yourself up to it, and talk to your doctor about saying, hey,
and get some blood tests and see where your blood numbers are.
Work your way up. He was talking about just going out and getting sunlight from vitamin D.
No, not sunlight. No.
Exactly.
Awful.
Oh my goodness. And
you mean without sunscreen on my face? Why would I?
He was being told he was basically getting attacked by not the FDA, but the FTC for making, statements as a doctor. So it just gets.
I mean, if he can't say it, who can?
Exactly.
And I know chiropractors were at the same time were talking about vitamins, which we're allowed to talk about.
Yep.
And they were getting. There's one in my town, actually, Eric Nicuti. He got sued, and I don't know, all sorts of stuff happened to him because he was talking about how to naturally. Loud. He was really loud. I went to school with him. I graduated with him, and he's a good guy. But he's still doing well. He would not shut up. And you know what? I give it to him.
And maybe we should, and we shouldn't. We have gotten to the point.
He wasn't going to tolerate it anymore.
Exactly. And the thing is it's getting worse, because now you have a world-renowned medical doctor like Peter McCullough, folks, to understand who Peter McCullough is a cardiologist. He has been board certified for as long as probably that some of those boards have been around.
He's more well-written in medical journals than probably almost anyone, but especially anybody in his field of cardiology.
Yeah. So not only is he he's not just a researcher. he is a clinician. So he's doing both
He actually
research
sees patients.
and sees patients. So he's doing this stuff at a high level. He is the most published doctor, I think, alive at the moment, especially as a clinician. And he's saying, hey, I've got questions. I want to get better answers. And he's going after and into the research, asking the questions, and he's still being suppressed. And
they tried to take away some of, not, I don't know if there's license, but they tried to take away some accolades he had.
Well, it was his board certification.
Board certification.
One of the board certification was in question. And
just because he spoke about COVID and how to treat it.
Exactly.
And it wasn't all natural stuff either. It wasn't like how us chiropractors would be like vitamin D, rest. And
yeah,
I mean, there were some medications that he was saying that perfectly legitimate medications,
which are now being redeemed in the media.
Oh yeah. Now they're fine. They're fine 3 years later.
Yep. You mean
horse paste?
Wrong.
I mean, silly. It was just ridiculous. I mean, ivermectin, for the people who don't know what it is, it's an anti-parasitic, correct?
Correct. It has won the Nobel Prize in medicine.
For humans, not for horses. And
it just
God forbid
somebody's. It just happens to be off patent.
Yeah, it costs pennies.
Yeah.
So they don't make enough money.
It's used around the world for malaria. So anyways, I don't know why. I don't understand why this drug as an antiparasitic works so well or worked so well for COVID.
Yeah, I did do some research on it.
But at one point in time, it's not as effective, or it's not as later strains needed other things. So ivermectin was not, and never was, the silver bullet.
No, it was one of many things.
But how do you get to know that anybody said, hey, I found a solution that works right now. Let's run this right now. If they're being censored. And this was the worst part. I believe Pierre Corey's testimony on Capitol Hill on C-SPAN. Mm-hmm. So he testified back in the end of 20. I want to say it was the end of 20, going into 21, about his experience and how effective ivermectin was. YouTube has taken that testimony off of C-SPAN.
Wow.
That was gone. I think another one that was a Florida governor, Florida Gov basically roundtable discussion that was going on later in 21 with renowned medical doctors. We're not talking somebody who just got their MD and they're selling snake oil. These are doctors that have been asking questions and saying, hey, something is not right here. They were taken off the C-SPAN, or no, they were on whatever the Florida Gov website was, but the YouTube channel was doxxed or nixed. And now YouTube is, and this is why if you don't find us on YouTube and you're looking for us, go over to Rumble. I'm going to start uploading these to Rumble this weekend.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
I would love that.
So we'll be on Rumble too. And because Rumble basically said, no, we are not going to censor our people if what they are saying is
so
true.
Far so good.
Yeah.
So far so good. So where do we go from here? For me, I loved what you said about you get what you tolerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And freedom gets taken in little tiny bites.
Exactly.
And it doesn't get given back.
No.
And some of us never tolerated any of the tyranny that was happening in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And some of us did. So what I'm going to say is I'm no longer going to tolerate any of it.
Yeah. We can't. And at a certain point in time, we have, we have to make a decision, and we have to put a line in the sand. Why am I talking about censorship now when the AMA isn't trying to censor us? Because I don't think it ever stopped. I think they still, there is a group of people that are sort of AMA adjacent that won't come out, or they are not openly acknowledged, that are still trying to get rid of the chiropractic profession.
And I truly believe most medical doctors are fabulous people and don't feel the way that this tiny group of powerful people feel. And that's the thing, is it's always a tiny group with a bad agenda that feel like that they're saving something or doing something.
And it's not necessarily that it's a bad agenda. They think they know what is right for you and me and everyone else listening, but that's not freedom. And that is not getting to the bottom line of what is an answer for an individual. Do you and I have patients that walk in our door that we're like, we're going to see if this helps, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm sending you to the medical doctor, or I take a picture and I'm like, you do not have a problem that I need to help you with. You need to go, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You need to go right to the oncologist or the cardiologist or whoever, because that's, part of our job is to sort of, not necessarily triage, but to identify a problem that we cannot help with, especially higher medical issue that is more pressing. Cancer in the brain, cancer
in the bones.
Those lesions, those need to be addressed first. Come back and see us afterwards. We'll get your head on straight. But those types of things, those are life-threatening. And the difference between that and the other guy that basically, or the other gal, like I had a patient come in yesterday, her neck is all jacked up. She wants to be an ER nurse and a trauma nurse and do what is it called? Life flights. That is her goal. But she's been in the ER several times for herself, for some health issues she has. And she's like, I really hurt a lot. Who do I go to first, the ER or Dr. Schurger? I think I'm going to go to Dr. Schurger first because I know he can get me in pretty quick. And it was, there was some stuff. She had some stuff going on yesterday. I check in with her today. She says it's feeling better. But we both know, and I had another patient that spent 3 or 4 hours in the ER, then went to the other ER here in town. We've got two hospitals, not to get an answer.
Yeah, that happens.
And sometimes we put their head on straight and that takes care of it. Or at least it gets things moving in the right direction. So it's a matter, I don't want to say that we are the answer for everybody. Chiropractic and especially the upper cervical work we do is amazing. Why would over 200 of us fly out to Vegas next week just to hang out and not just do Vegas? We're going to be in a seminar and we're actually going to enjoy ourselves there.
Because we want to be better doctors. We're going to learn better things. I can't wait. I think it's going to, every time we go to a Blair conference, I come away with,
it's going to be so good.
So much information.
We're going to have a couple of good episodes. I think we might have 3 or 4 good episodes that we will try to record.
You're
while we're
adorable that you think I'm going to do 4 hours of episodes.
Said 3 or 4 episodes. They don't have to be hours.
Oh my God. But it ends up being about an hour. I've got a win for one patient to end on here is that she's a physical therapist, works with kids. She spent the last couple years caregiving with some elderly parents, and she came in and looked like a shell of a woman, honestly. Oh, wow. Just sunk in, not well. And honestly, she's only been with me for 2 weeks, and she came in on Thursday and she looked at me and she did look better to me too. But she said, Doc, I've got more energy. I was at work all day today and I had energy through the whole day. And I said, that's amazing. And she goes, and one other thing, one of my family members told me I have more color in my face. And I said, that's amazing, honey. That's the power of what we're doing. And I was like, and what's so cool is she knows that I'm not doing physical therapy and she's not doing chiropractic. Yeah. She's helping kids that are special needs, have mobility. I love that she does that. And I love that we can be chiropractors and we can work together, and these practitioners, more medical minded practitioners, don't feel that that kind of stuff is broken now, where she wasn't told that she's crazy for going to see a chiropractor. She doesn't feel crazy. That didn't even cross her mind. Yeah. And I love that, where years ago she would have had to say it secretly, like, oh, I'm seeing a chiropractor.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to be like that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, and that goes back and forth. That goes both ways. Cause I know a bunch of chiropractors that wouldn't go to see a medical doctor because they really didn't have a medical problem. And then they said, maybe I should go get this checked out. might have saved some people's life.
Absolutely does.
I still wonder if Dr. Matthias, who's now passed, is it only a year? I think it's only a year.
Year or two. Yeah, it's not been long.
It's only been a year. My other buddy passed 2 years ago, as well did my mom. But if he'd gone to the cardiologist, maybe they would have caught this and they said, "Hey, doc,
you need a stent.
You need a stent. You just need one." I did have a patient recently. In fact, I need to follow up with him. He's a young kid who had a heart attack, and got him right on into the ER. A bunch of stents. I think they're still going in for a bypass after that. But he's young. He just happens to be. Unfortunately, his diet wasn't as great as it could be, and he is. There were some other health issues that precluded him from being as physically active as I think he would have liked to have been. So all sorts of things.
There's a place for all of us, and we don't need to eliminate. What was it? What's the word that they used?
Let me go back and see if I can
find it. Not destroy, eliminate.
Here, it's right. It's this one here.
Exterminate.
I'm looking. Anyways, it's.
But we don't need to feel like that for any practitioners. Like, it's not like anybody's doing, if you were doing black magic or something as a healing art, I probably want you to be eliminated.
I'd be a little suspect, but even then, if you're doing good black magic,
there's no good black magic, but if you weren't hurting anyone, okay. But the problem is, and that's freedom, right? That's libertarian freedom. But we took an oath to do no harm, just like the medical doctors did. So we're all on the same team. We just need to work together, and I'm happy to do it. Absolutely.
Dr. Bagley, where can they find you?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. You can find me at precisionchirostl.com.
And I'm in Springfield, Illinois, KeystoneChiroSPI.com. Folks, thank you for listening. Feel free to 5-star and send us a review. I'm going to go dig up some reviews to read on the next episodes or so. Definitely share on all the socials so that people can hear this message. And remember, everything you hear might not be the whole truth. So
even from us,
do your own research. And if you find some research that contradicts what we say, send it on over. I'm more than happy to find something that contradicts what I do so I can do it better.
Absolutely. So take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
That's all for today's episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's show with Drs. Bagley and Schurger, remember, don't give up and just live with the pain. Come back next week and get more answers and solutions. Visit our websites at KeystoneChiroSPI.com and PrecisionChiropracticSTL.com for more info, and catch all the episodes of The Blonde and the Bald.